Hello, everybody. I am back. I was in France. Ever have a chance to go to France? You should go to France. That shit changed my life. We're going to talk about belting today, so let's do it. All right, we're going to try to make this video short. I say that all the time, but I do try to mean that I'm going to make it as short as I can because I know nobody has an attention span and they want information very, very fast. What is belting, at least in my opinion, first? Let's start with that. Belting to me is a very diaphragmatically connected and well-placed note that is typically a little bit louder, and you might find there's a little bit of a, not necessarily a dichotomy, but definitely a difference between your speaking register singing, what you hear most people type, kind of use, this kind of thing like this, and this kind of bigger, bolder, and this kind of thing. So there's definitely going to be maybe a little bit of a difference, and you're going to hear rock singers and stuff especially do this all the time, where they almost have two different voices. So that's kind of what it is to me. Like I said, it's a well-placed, equalized between pressure, held note that's usually a little bit bolder, a little bit bigger, and we're going to try to get into that today. We're going to go through it in a couple different steps here, but first, as always, we're going to have to talk about breath. So we're going to take some breaths in together. So I want you to put a hand on your stomach, and don't skip this part for God's sakes, because it's so important that you do this. Remember that basically where we're taking that breath in from is where the exit wants to come from as well. So meaning if we're taking a breath in and we're using these muscles to expand, then they want to collapse. So we want to try to get out of the upper chest, because if we start breathing up here, we're going to start pushing out from here in terms of using those muscles. So down here, take a couple breaths quickly. We're doing this quickly. And you should not have any rising or falling from the shoulders of the upper chest. Now I'm moving fast, so we're going to start putting a hum on the out of this. Now I'm already getting some vibrato and things like that happening because of how much I've done this, but you should be able to almost feel the vibration of your voice in terms of being connected to here. We have an entire tube that's coming the whole way up, and we're going to start getting in touch with that and being aware of that, so we have this constant awareness of what's happening in the body. So a couple more times. Now opening the mouth, and we're going to start shaping towards an O, so we start to have this nice, relaxed, almost yawn type of feeling. Oh, oh, oh. Hopefully you should already be noticing that we're creating this continuous loop here, this continuous rising and falling from here and out, and here and out. We're creating a physical type of thing that's based more on the physicality of the movements than how beautifully you sound or anything like that. Oh, oh. So now as we make that O shape, we're going to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder, but what I want you to become aware of is your placement. Where is the note sitting in your mouth? Where are you hearing that vibration? Where are you feeling the vibration? Where are your vocal cords guiding that sound? We have a palate and a kind of different thing we can send. We can go and fall straight out of the face, or we can move backwards. I'm starting to move back like this. Try to sit wherever's comfortable for you. But again, we're opening a little bit bigger, a little bit more of an O shape. Think opera, think of Pavarotti, whatever works. And we should have this dumb face. Oh my God. Oh. Oh, oh, oh. So again, nothing happened in the jaw, nothing happened up here. We're just going and pushing that pressure through. Now, another thing I want you to try to do here and become aware of that's going to be very important in terms of not only finding vibrato too, which I'm not even really mentioning in this, but is this equalization between the pressure that you're building here and building here. I want you to see if you can dive into the diaphragm and find where it wants to land and sit. Now, when people don't know diaphragmatic support that well, they tend to find diaphragmatic support first kind of shittily up here right under the sternum. And you can hear this in people's bodies. I hear this constantly. But we have this whole kind of line above the navel that we can start learning how to push from. I have an entire course based on foundation that you can look up down in the description if you want to like take this a little bit further. And I think the first video I ever put out on YouTube based on singing was what does diaphragmatic support feel like. Anyway, watch me, listen to me, see if you can tell when I do this motion where I end up landing, and then we have this equalization and pressure, and it just kind of turns into this lovely kind of singing thing. Oh, 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 oh. So right when I hit that vibrato, my stomach is landing exactly where it wants to be. And then I have this oscillation, this movement, and then I have this landing. So again, it's creating this equalization. Again, a great thing to be aware of. Now we're going to push this a little bit louder. I'll try to back the mic away so I don't distort it and it sounds like shit. But again, we're going to just be aware of being open and try to see how much we can start pushing through that space. Now, loudness is not really the key here, but when you're learning these things, you want to try to see what the thresholds are and what doesn't feel good and what does. But essentially, I want to try to fill up this room with reverberation. I want to try to fill this room up with sound. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm still gonna go a little bit quieter because I don't want to be ridiculous and blow up the mic. So I push down into, I find my landing. I have a nice open O shape. Oh, 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 oh. Now you heard me build in some compression and things that get a little bit more complicated there, but I'm definitely in belting territory there where you hear me, oh, and I start really selling that. Another funny way you can think about this, I should put a clip in, but it'll probably be copywritten, is Ace Ventura. When he opens the door, I reference this all the time, and he goes, just one more thing, and he goes, ah, ah. That was what we call like an operatic belt. So we're going to take two more things here really quick. We're going to talk about how to put different vowels through this so that we're not just going, oh, all the time. So we're going to change the vowel. Remember that what matters more is the shape and the resonance and what feels right. The vowel and the enunciation kind of comes later. We want to go with what's working best first. So essentially, if you have an O, oh, and then we go to an E and we completely lose all of our quality, E, then we have to go back more towards an O. Does that make sense? O, so there we hear just a subtle change between those two. So let's give us an A. Hey, hey. How about an I? Hey, hey. Let's try an E, but again, be aware of the verticality of trying to keep it nice and open this way instead of like this. Hey, hey, hey. Now, one other quick little thing here is I hope you recognize that you hear me diving into my diaphragm each time. You can try to put a forceful exhale or an H in the front of this to get a better handle on this at first, but then we want to start getting rid of that extra air. But if I go he, ho. Now, one more thing. How do we incorporate this in terms of staying open and going through our whole range? Obviously, that gets into mixed voice, compression, some difficult things that are going to take some more study on everybody's part. But essentially, if you are equalizing that pressure, you have a nice placement, you're aware of that placement, you're getting used to the way this feels in the body, we should essentially be able to ascend up to the top of our head and kind of start learning how to stay open and connect these things without the jaw and all that kind of stuff getting in the way. This sounds kind of like this. Oh! So that's almost my entire range. But if you recognize my face, everything's still the same. Oh! And if you listen really close to the back of my throat in terms of its openness, you'll hear that it's about the same amount of oh. So this didn't change. Does that make sense? One way you can practice this easily at first is by using O to oo and trying to split the difference between chesty and head voicey. Oh, oh. But then eventually we have to compress and learn how to hold back pressure because we're essentially making the sound smaller. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to take lessons with me, if you want to learn more about this stuff, God knows I have plenty of videos. You can join me on Patreon where I'm giving more exclusive content. This week, I'm going to be breaking down Freddie Mercury's voice, which gets into all the things we just talked about, and again, giving exclusive stuff over to Patreon where people actually support me and help me to thrive and make money from music. I really appreciate you guys. I'll see you soon.